2008 is the 60th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It also marks just over 60 years of Wilton Park conferences on international affairs. This one has been jointly supported by the Swiss and Norwegian foreign ministries and has attracted academic experts, diplomats and high-level United Nations officials to discuss the newly established UN Human Rights Council, which has replaced the former UN Commission on Human Rights. Canadian Judge Louise Arbour is the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
I think it has some institutional features that are very promising in the sense that it is a little more implementation driven. The Commission frankly has had quite a glorious history of 60 years, including, of course, being the cradle of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. But it was essentially, I think it got stuck as a normative body, developing new conventions and so on. It collapsed, in a sense, and lost a lot of its credibility when it attempted to do country-specific verification or oversight of implementation or enforcement of rights. This council has at least one feature that should address that, and that is the Universal Periodic Review System. It's good on paper. All member states of the UN will have their human rights record scrutinized periodically. So that, I think, holds considerable promise that it will be more relevant to the implementation of rights and that it will be more transparent, less selective, and therefore less politicized.
Another advocate of the new periodic review is Britain's ambassador in Geneva, Nicholas Thorne.
We've created this system called Universal Periodic Review, which basically means that every member state of the United Nations will, over a 4-year period, be brought before the Council to explain what's happening on human rights on its territory. It took a year to organise this. It's got some teeth. Now, if we immediately go in there and start rushing after the bad cases, we're going to get back into the old business of being overtly political. So no, this is supposed to be a mature mechanism where the country concerned will participate in the exercise and hopefully be encouraged to be more open so that we can all help those countries to help themselves.
Among topics to be discussed at the 2-day conference are the human rights issues arising in countries where religious law exists alongside secular law. Hina Jilani is a UN Special Representative on Human Rights Defenders.
I think that the conflict is there, obviously, and it's a much more difficult system to work with if you have two parallel sources of law. And especially when those two parallel sources have contradictory principles or settings in which they can work. So I do believe that in countries where there are the provisions of laws that emanate from religious belief, that kind of problem is obviously there. And it is obviously not restricted to one religion. It applies to everything. But I think more than the fact that there is a policy or law influenced by religion, the problem also lies with attitudes which are influenced by a more conservative and a more orthodox view of religion that then seeps into legislation. So I think that is also a problem. So you may at times be able to seek and get law reform, which is more secular, which is more human rights sensitive, but at the same time it becomes very difficult to change the mindset.
I believe in the law as an instrument of justice. I don't think that the law in and of itself is justice, but I think it's an instrument, and I think it's also an instrument of social justice, of conflict resolution, but I also believe that not a single individual or institution has the capacity to fix it all. We all have to do our little part in the system.